Hello, and welcome back to the Rebellious Sacred Heart podcast. I am so glad you're all here. My name is Christina, and if you listened to my first episode, thank you so much for doing that, and also thank you for coming back. I appreciate you very much. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. And just so you know, we're all new here, even me, so thanks for stopping by and taking a listen, or just listening. How do you take a listen? I don't know. Anyways, today I am just going to spend a few minutes at the beginning here to go back in time a little bit, just to kind of give you a brief history of my life and a timeline that of how and when this whole self-discovery and awakening began for me, and then how it evolved. So, and then we're just going to talk after that. It's just going to, one thing lead to another, as always. So, just to start off, and for those of you who don't know or didn't listen to the first podcast, I'm 55. So this is all new to me. I never planned on doing a podcast, let alone just speaking my truth. And honestly, I didn't know my truth until just more recently in life. So, as a kid, I grew up in a Midwestern town in probably what I would now say was a lower middle class environment. I went to a Lutheran school from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I later found out that my grandparents paid for that, which makes total sense since we didn't have any money. But I was the oldest of two kids. I was 9, almost 10 years old when my sister was born, so there's 10 years between us. And my parents did eventually divorce, but not till I was 19. My sister was 9. And so for the most part, you know, I had a good childhood. My memories are loving and fun and funny. I've also had trauma within that childhood in places that I have since healed, but we'll probably talk about those in a different episode. I'm not going to go there today. But anyways, when I was just before my 16th birthday, I met a boy, and we ended up staying together, basically. We dated for 5 years. We were later married just before my 21st birthday. And then when I was 23, my daughter was born. Our daughter was born. And then our son was born when I was 27. And I had my boy and my girl, and everybody was healthy, and things were good. So my husband and I both worked full-time. I maybe took a year off shortly after my son was born, tried to stay home, tried to babysit other kids, and yeah, that wasn't my thing. So my career basically had been in insurance at the age of 21, shortly before or after I got married. I can't remember. It was before. I started working for an insurance company as a claims adjuster, and that was a cool job, and it paid well. So I was very excited about that. Well, because it paid pretty decent, I basically ended up making that my career. I didn't go to college. I barely finished high school because I wasn't interested in anything but art, choir, and gym and sports. So I just couldn't connect with the subjects piece of it, the education piece of it, history. I didn't resonate with any of that stuff. And I couldn't make it make sense, and nor did I really have any interest to try. So anyways, I was in insurance, and I worked for various insurance companies doing insurance claims, field claims adjusters, doing work comp, auto, home, commercial claims, things like that. So investigating and researching things was part of my job. And then after I left the insurance company side of it, I ended up working for a major retail chain and oversaw their claims. So again, and then I went on into being a director of risk management, had a great career, and that ended in 2017. So not that that part matters just yet, but anyway, so where was I? Had the kids and worked full time. And so I wasn't really paying attention to maybe outside things like on the news. I watched the news for the weather and maybe just local things, but that's about it. As I was growing up, my parents didn't talk about politics or really anything like that. So like if the TV was on, it was on sports most likely. And the only other thing that my dad used to like was like war movies because he was a Vietnam vet. So other than that, like sports was on our TV or the music was blasting. Always loved music. So anyways, we were raising our family, did all the things. And, you know, like most people, I'm sure we were working. We wanted to make life better for our kids than we felt our life was growing up. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So, again, wasn't really paying attention to any of the stuff outside of that. So my husband and I ended up divorcing after 18 years. And I will say that it was one of the hardest things that I had to initiate and do. But in my heart, I felt that I was losing myself and my identity. And I felt like I did what I had to do for myself and my children, honestly. But this was the first time I had to really find that inner courage and that strength within myself to do something for myself, for my well-being, that was way out of my comfort zone. I'd never been on my own before. I basically moved from my parents' house and with my boyfriend and ultimately my husband. So like I had never been on my own before. But we all got through it. I put on my big girl panties and I did it. And everything, it was crappy, yes, and it was hard, but we all got through it. Everybody's happy and healthy and everything is forgiven now, and I wouldn't change a thing. So about a year, little over a year after my divorce, I met my now husband, and I pretty much knew right away that he was the one. And so we married the following year, and we've now been married for 15 years. And he had 2 boys of his own, and then, of course, my 2 kids. And we did our best attempt at blending our families. And honestly, I think we did a pretty great job. I mean, they pretty much consider each other their brothers and sisters. And everything's good. I couldn't be happier, actually. So, anyway, here's where things start to get spicy. So in about somewhere in 2010, my husband, we started talking about a lot of other things. Like he started saying things that I was like, what? He was totally challenging my whole belief system. Even though I realize now that my belief system wasn't based on anything that I investigated, researched, and believed for myself. It was more of what I had been told or taught or learned from friends, family, whoever. Anyways, he's an engineer, and he had been in the manufacturing world and project management for like 20 years at that time. And honestly, I was enamored by his intelligence and the way he spoke and the way he thought so logically about things. And I still am. He's very, very intelligent. But one day he says to me, he says, he goes, I don't believe everything in the Bible, and I don't think I believe I don't believe in God. And I'm like, what? Like, wait, what? Because as you heard, I'm Lutheran. He grew up Lutheran, actually, too. He didn't go to a Lutheran school or anything, but he grew up going to Lutheran church, and that's how he and his family, they were raised that way. So this was very surprising. I was kind of stunned and taken aback by it. So he starts to explain why he questions the Bible and its accuracy. And basically he is talking about the amount of time between the life and death of Jesus and then the hundreds of years in between before the Bible was actually written. So obviously we've got those hundreds of years to account for, and I can understand that. But then he goes and he uses the analogy of the telephone game. Like, because obviously we know man had to write it. I mean, who else was going to write it, right? But he uses the analogy of the telephone game where you start out with a simple sentence and you tell a secret to your neighbor, tell that sentence word for word to the first person next to you, and then see as they tell their neighbor, and it goes on from one to the next, how distorted that sentence is by the time it reaches, say, the 10th person. So that was a very good point that he had. I couldn't dismiss that. Like, I didn't have an answer for it one way or the other. I kind of just like, okay, well, I get that. Because I was always kind of under the belief that there were some things in the Bible that I believed and some things that I wasn't sure of, even growing up. But anyways, so when he said that he didn't believe in God, that took it to another level for me. And I was still like, well, what do you believe in? And he says he believes in a higher power, but just couldn't say that specifically he believed in God, at least not the God of the Bible. And then he mentioned that there were thousands of religions, and not one of them could agree. And I don't know about you, but like, I had no idea that there were that many religions. I was brought up in one, but I didn't know there was that many. So I actually had to go look it up. I remember looking it up, and I remember it being in the thousands. But right before I started this podcast, I decided to look it up again. So there's over 4,000 religions. And I just, like, I can't fathom that. I don't know what that means. That sounds like way, way too many. And I had no idea. So just all these things kind of just brought more questions. And that's kind of what I'm used to, looking for answers in things. So then he goes and he says, well, as far as we know, God is an alien. Again, what? But he's like, well, what is an alien? Like, we truly don't have any idea what an alien is, other than it's an unknown being from a different realm. We don't know their intentions. We don't really have any idea about what an alien is, other than, we might decide what we think it is because they did a really good job of making movies about aliens and making them super fucking scary, and people eating and running, and it's all so way out there and totally demonic and evil in all the aliens that I've seen, other than E.T. So we really don't have any idea, do we? Because it's not like anybody talks about it. The government's been trying to hide all these things. And what's the big secret? What is so secretive? That's the part that actually makes me pause and question things a little bit more, especially based on what I've learned over the past years. because of the actual research and investigating that I took from the career that I have, and now I put it into finding things out about the world and the things that I thought I believed. But anyways, basically what he was trying to say is that God is the unknown. That's why it could be an alien. Like, we don't really know what that means. But God is the unknown, and potentially a being or energy from hidden and higher realms. So I couldn't really argue with that. I can't argue with that. So we actually had a joke for a couple of years that, Jesus is an alien, God's an alien, and we kind of had the whole family saying it. Not sure if that was a good thing to do or not, but that's just how it happened, just being honest. So anyways, as all of these conversations evolved, I started doing my own research and finding all these other things that made me question what I had believed before. And he blew me away with this one too, I just remembered. So then he said one day that he goes, I don't think we ever landed on the moon either. And I'm like, Jesus, like, fuck, dude, do you believe anything? But again, I was stunned, and I didn't know what to do or say, because I personally had never, ever questioned any of these things. I had no reason to, in my mind, because no one around me, not one person around me, not a friend, not a colleague, not family, no one that I personally knew was questioning any of these things. So then I go and I start looking up things about landing on the moon. What do I find? I find tons of potential proofs that what my husband was saying was true, that we probably didn't. In fact, I think I just saw recently that Netflix has actually got a movie coming out. I don't know if it's out yet. Don't remember what it's called. So I'm sorry. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here. But it's a movie about how the moon landing was fake. I mean, what? Like, so now they're going to just actually tell us? I don't get it. Anyways, these just are all the things that I never considered, never questioned. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we need to never stop questioning things. Questioning things, questioning information is our way of finding our own truth. And it's probably a good idea to have a better understanding or understanding of the way this world works. The outside world anyways. So anyways. Oh, and one more thing. I thought this was where he had me before I even started looking up stuff. So when he was talking about the moon landing being faked, he said, how did he say it? He said, tell me how the president, I'm pretty sure it was President Roosevelt at the time, tell me how President Roosevelt was able to call the space shuttle and talk to the astronauts from a landline. At that time, we had no cell phones. We had no internet. We had none of the technology that we have today. We had landlines, phones that plugged into a wall and were attached to a wall. How the fuck do you call space? Like, that is so logical that I never heard anybody talk about it, though. He was the first one that I'd ever heard say that. And I was like, right? Well, that makes no sense. Okay, so here we are. Basically, where we're at now is I'm going to say questioning, learning things, all these things started around 2010 when he would just start throwing in these revelations about himself and what he did or didn't believe. And, we just went on with life. And then in 2017, this is where it also, really starts getting real for me in real time. In 2017, I actually started off that year in April, I think, or something. I ended up getting laid off. A group layoff went through the company I was working for, and a lot of the hierarchy director type people were getting let go. We were too expensive. Anyways, I was devastated. I loved that job. It was my favorite job out of all the ones I had ever had, and felt like I was making the most difference. But it is what it is. Took me a long time to get over it, but now I look back on it and I understand why I was given the time. Because later in that year, 2017, in September, the last week of September, my husband and I went to Vegas. He had to go for a few days anyways for a business trip, and we decided to extend it a few days and do a mini vacation. So the night before we were getting ready to leave, we noticed, and we had just saw for the first time, the whole time we were there, that there was a big country music fest happening with a bunch of huge country stars that we liked. And since we love music, we were like, oh, maybe we should just extend it one more day. Let's extend it one more day. Let's think about it, talk about it. So we went back and forth, and ultimately we did decide just to head home as planned, rather than, changing everything and staying for this festival. And which was the right thing to do. I'm glad we did, because the next evening my phone starts blowing up and everybody's like, you're home, right? Like you guys came home yesterday, right? And I'm like, why? What's going on? And then they told me about this shooting that happened in Vegas. And I was like, what? Like, oh my God. And then I found out it was at that country music fest that we were talking about. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, we were literally going to be there. We were almost right there in the middle of all that. So whatever it was that we listened to that told us to go home as scheduled, I'm glad we listened. I'm so glad we listened. But what came with that, like that one hit really close to home. Now, this was a big major event that my husband and I were almost right in the middle of, and would have been affected in a very different way than just coming home as planned. So I'm glad that all happened. But I was really starting to pay attention to what was going on. I was watching how the news, the mainstream media, was covering this incident. And I was also listening to other people that weren't finding their way onto mainstream because they didn't want to talk to these people. But there was many, many eyewitness firsthand accounts from people that were on the ground or in the area of what they heard and saw. And what they heard and what they saw and what they experienced was very different than what I was seeing being reported on the mainstream news. So none of this was making sense. I'm like, why aren't the journalists talking to these people? Why aren't these news channels talking to these people? Like, they're telling you something entirely different happened. Well, it turns out, guess what? That's the point. They don't want to talk to those people. They're too busy setting up a narrative the way they planned it. Now, I'm not saying that all of it was done on purpose. I'm just talking specifically about how things are reported, what they actually report, and what they dismiss. Because they were dismissing the people that I felt were the most compelling, the most authentic, and appeared to be the most truthful. Because I don't know about you, but I think we all have a pretty good idea of when we're listening to somebody or watching somebody, like being able to get a feeling for whether or not that person is being truthful and authentic. I think we all kind of can see that. We have a pretty good spidey sense on that. But anyways, so I was feeling way more authenticity and truth coming from the eyewitnesses I was seeing on YouTube and citizen journalists that were trying to get out there and get more information, which I truly appreciate. So that has helped so much. But anyway, so I start seeing this pattern, and obviously the red flags are up now. So I'm really paying attention because I'm seeing how the mainstream media and how everything is portrayed in the mainstream and how it is told in the mainstream, and the narrative that forms on every single channel, a lot of times reinforcing certain same words versus what I was seeing on YouTube. But then it got a little worse because, so I'm seeing this and I'm kind of realizing what's happening. I don't have the answers as to who's behind any of it. Like how, like if it was I don't know, like I can't even begin to guess, and it's not worth my time, honestly, personally. So anyways, what I found after a month or two was that as time went on, I was starting to notice that every now and then someone would report on a different account than what the mainstream narrative was. That there was one shooter, one area, all this stuff. But then every now and then you'd see something squeeze in where they thought that maybe there was more than one shooter and the shots were coming from different directions in different places. But then what I started noticing is those people that were talking that way, that there was a different account than what was being said by news media, those people started to die in odd, weird, mysterious ways. Unnatural ways. So they were conveniently being silenced. So now I was starting to see an even bigger pattern. And the problem with this pattern is it's one that I saw in many of the other things that I had been researching about other past events, big events, where people who have an account or an eyewitness perspective that is different than what is trying to be told and spewed out into the public in a certain way, if you go against that, you're a conspiracy theorist. And if you go against that too hard, you are silenced in one way or another. Now, that really opened my eyes because literally I was seeing it in real time happen as that event in real time was unfolding. So that really pissed me off. Like, I couldn't control the past. I definitely still can't control the past, future. Well, okay, yes, I can. That's a different story. I can create anything, but I can't control what others are doing. Let me put it that way. So, anyways, all this does is cause confusion for most people. Like, they might, your average person, someone who's not, looking for anything or is like how I used to be, where I pretty much believed what I was seeing in the news, in the media, and I left it at that. I had no reason not to believe it. And there's many people that are still out there. But for those people that are starting to see different clues and things here and there, it might cause some confusion. Maybe they have a little question that makes them go, But then eventually all of that loses steam because Everybody stops talking about it. The news has moved on to something else, and it's all forgotten about because the narrative has been set. There's no room for any more questions, and anything beyond that is merely conspiracy theory anyways. So then, once it is labeled as conspiracy, it no longer, it's like all the credibility is lost for most people. See, now for me, that has changed quite dramatically. If you're calling something a conspiracy, I want to look at that a little bit more. Let me see what I can find. But anyway, so, okay, continuing on after Vegas. So in that same month of October in 2017, the 17th letter shows up. People start talking about that 17th letter. And I start looking into that, and wow, that like starts rocking my world and sparking my curiosity more than anything prior to that. Now, I'm not going to talk about like what that is, what I think it is. It doesn't matter. I realize now that none of this stuff really matters. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who's running it or what specifically it was supposed to mean or supposed to do. But in my mind, that letter, that 17th letter that has been talked about since that time, in my mind, that meant questions. That's what that letter stands for. Questions, in my mind. That's how I looked at it. And you know how I love questions now just after this stuff I've been telling you. So I immediately started diving into things that I honestly had no previous interest in, of course, because I hadn't questioned it either. But if there was a question being asked, I had the time and I had the skills because I had been honing these skills for 30 years. Plus I'm a Scorpio. We tend to be natural researchers, investigators, and allergic to lies and fraud. So here I am with tons of questions coming in all the time, one after the other. So anyways, after I've done all that, it became very overwhelming, honestly. But I wanted to find the answers for myself because I had a feeling that whatever I had believed prior to being asked the question, that belief would have been based on something that I was told. So I also knew that that was probably wrong based on everything that I had been finding in the previous 7 years of the things my husband and I were talking about. So I was definitely right in that. I was wrong on my beliefs in all of it. So the truth was always there, but it was really hard to find. It was buried underneath narratives and paid articles, and that really made it difficult to find the real truth and discern and decipher all of it. So anyways, after, I would spend 10 to 12 hours a day sometimes digging for truth. What I was finding was absolutely, I don't even know how to describe it, overwhelming. It was stunning to the point of being stopped in my tracks, in total disbelief in how wrong we have been as a society and culture based on the things that we are being told, which create our beliefs. So it was all quite unbelievable for me at first because I kind of was living in this bubble where, and I guess probably with my head in the sand. And that's hard to admit. You don't want to admit that, you kind of were duped by all these things. But hey, it is what it is. And what doesn't kill me here makes me stronger, right? This is part of my plan. This is how I had to learn it. So, but anyways, after exhausting myself for years and having lots of scars and calluses from digging all those rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and they never seemed to end. And they always found a way to connect to a different rabbit hole, which was it was like a web of rabbit holes, each connected to the other hole or lie or however you want to call it. And honestly, it got to the point where I'm surprised that anybody could see any grass in my yard because I was digging so many rabbit holes, and everybody knew it was what I was doing because I was talking about it, and to all my family and friends. And yes, they thought I was crazy, and that's cool. Not so much anymore. But none of that really mattered. What I realized is it became so overwhelming to a point of exhaustion that my heart just couldn't take anymore. I couldn't take anymore. So this brought me to a point of enlightenment. Enlightenment in the fact that none of the things that I was looking at actually really mattered anymore for me personally right now, because I can't control anyone else. I can't control what happens in this world. But the only thing I can control is me. So how can I turn this around and put that same attention that I was putting into all these other things into myself? So in 2019, that's when I started my own investigation. It started taking a bit of a turn. Yes, I was still investigating and following the questions and all of that to the end. But I started really being interested in what I could do and how I could be better in this life and how I could make a difference in this life for myself and for my family and for those around me. So my first question that I had for myself was a real question. And a question I've thought of before, but really, like, you think it, I ask it, and it goes away. First question was, who am I? Followed by, why am I here? Followed by, what is my purpose? Followed by, what is our purpose? What is our purpose for being here? I even started to look at religion again, trying to look at it with an open mind and an open heart, regardless of the things that my husband and I had already, kind of looked at, discussed, researched. I even started going to church a little bit more here and there with some friends. It was hard. It didn't always feel right. But it was a very, I don't know if liberal is the word, but it was an open church in the fact that I felt like the person who was talking had an open mind as to the things in the world around us. So it kind of felt okay. But it still didn't resonate with me entirely because there was too many things that just didn't feel right. So I start looking into spirituality then. I hadn't really... It's funny how that 17th letter actually brought that out in me a little bit more. So nothing was lost there. In fact, I think it helped a lot of people grow. But anyways, I start to look into spirituality. It's a really elusive kind of subject. And at least it was at that time. So many people are talking about it now, which just warms my heart. It makes me happy because more and more people are starting to awaken to the truth, their own truth. So as I start looking into spirituality, to see if there were any answers there that could answer those questions about who I am and why I'm here, one thing I did realize was that religion and spirituality are two very different things, at least in my mind. Meaning that one is controlled and you tend to be taught what to believe, how to believe, how to act. And then the other is not. There's really no boundaries or guidelines or it's a feeling, I think, more than anything. It's a knowing. It's a love. It's things you can't explain. So if you thought the world events and the events around us were confusing, trying to figure out who I was and why I was here was probably the most confusing of all. but I should know this stuff. I mean, I did go to Lutheran school for 9 years. I should know about God and my connection, right? But then as I started to explore these things, like deeply, I realized that as I was remembering back to being a kid in the Lutheran school, I suddenly remembered that I had always been questioning the Bible, even back then. Because I remember in grade school thinking, okay, this wasn't what I thought in grade school, but this is how I'm thinking about it now. I could never understand and don't understand right now how the Bible depicted the word or depicted God in such polarizing ways. Because the God of the Old Testament after Genesis seemed very different than the God of the New Testament. I couldn't understand how the God in one book of the Bible could ask and expect you to kill your own child. This is how I was feeling as a kid. I remember thinking these things, like I don't quite get it, but I can't ask. Everyone's going to laugh at me. No one's, the teacher's just going to tell me to memorize it and believe it, and that's it. Because religion class was literally memorization. That's it. That's really, to me, all it was. Anyways, one book of the Bible, you're expected to kill your own child, sacrifice things, sacrifice people, kill other people. And then in another book, that God was helping the blind to see. He was bringing the dead to life. He took one fish and a loaf of bread and fed, 5,000 people, I think it was. He walked on water, healed leprosy, turned water into wine, loved you unconditionally. So how are these the same God? Doesn't seem like it. And if it's not meant to be the same God within that Bible, then why aren't we told that? Make it make sense to me. That's all I want. Make it make sense. But let's be honest, they didn't really want it to make sense to you. They didn't want it to make sense to me. Just memorize it and believe it and be glad you got an A because my memory is good. So anyways, more childhood questions. I remember thinking, if God is love, then why is so much killing and sacrifice happening? Why are we supposed to fear God? Why are we taught to fear God? If God is love and he loves us, why would we fear him? I have never feared God. Even though the Bible tells us to do that, I have never feared God. God is love. God loves me. Why am I fearing that? So why are we told, why are we taught, preached to, whatever you want to call it, why are we born sinners? Why do we have to ask for forgiveness? If the God of love made us, how can we be born sinners? And if we have free will, why are we asking forgiveness when God literally says, or not literally because I wasn't there, but God says, there is nothing to forgive. Meaning we're making our own choices. That's why we were put here. We're here to experience certain things. And I think ultimately part of each one of our purpose is to get to the point of knowing who you are. So anyways, if God is within us, so I was taught that God is within you, but doesn't ever talk about connecting to that God that's within us. And if God is within us, why do they mostly portray God as being outside of us in a heaven that we can only pray to and hope that we get to when we die, if we're good? And then here's another question. Why did Jesus tell us in the book of John that when we see him, meaning Jesus, when we see him, we also see the Father? That to me says that they are one and the same. The Father lives in Jesus, so that means they are one. Also in John, Jesus says that basically we can do everything that he can do and much more. Specifically, it says, "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me, Jesus, will do the works I have been doing, walking on water, and they will do even greater things than these. That is pretty profound. And not once in school was I taught that verse, this is how I feel right now, should be taken quite literally. That's a verse that you need to take literally. There are many verses and things in the Bible that I think need to be taken very literally that will help us understand who we truly are and the power that we have and the control that no one has over us. That's why I don't like the word understand so much anymore. I am not under anybody. Nobody is standing over me. So I like to understand. And by that, I mean from my heart, making considerations and determinations from my heart. That to me is understanding. So anyways, if we can do everything he can do and more, what are we waiting for? I mean, okay, honestly, I never did succeed at turning water into wine. I tried, and maybe that was a good thing that I wasn't able to do that. So I might not be here talking to you right now. Anyways, I poke fun. But what I realized basically through all of these years of discovery and research and just asking questions was that these important questions, these most important questions, I was going about it all wrong. I was looking for answers in all the wrong places because I was looking for that information about myself from sources outside of me. I was looking for answers from a book that may or may not be true. So, what I realized is that I needed to look for that information, find that information from the source that is within me, rather than a book that was created by man or a specific religion that has many versions, many translations, and they're all different. Like, where do you go? That's confusion. And I think that's part of what it's meant to do, control and confuse. Anyway, what I can say now that I've taken the time, made made myself a priority, is that now I know from a place deep within my heart that the real answers to all of these very real questions, like who are we? What is our purpose? Those answers cannot be found outside of you. They have to come from within because it's all right there. The truth that we seek, the meaning for our life, that truth is available to each and every one of us. And it is quite literally right here within each and every one of us. And it's in our hearts. It's not in our minds that have been programmed to think a certain way or habitually turn something a different way. Those answers are in your heart, where your true essence and wisdom lies. And this is where you will find your answers too. This is where your truth lies. Your answers about who you are and why you are here and what your purpose is. All of that is within you, in your heart, where your soul and your spirit reside and hold all of your inner wisdom the place that connects your soul to your heart, to source. And yes, there's lots of books that you can read. There's lots of videos and podcasts and information that can assist you. Do all that. Excuse me. Do all that research. Do some reading. Educate yourself. Invest in yourself. Invest the time in yourself because you are important. You are worthy. Every single person has this capability. This isn't a gift meant for certain people. Only certain people can connect to their higher self or their soul or their source. No. Everyone. You. You are loved. You are worthy. And you are here for a reason. And you can find that reason. You can find all of it. You can find that true peace, that true joy, that true happiness that comes from that connection. Again, that's what I want for all of you. And I hope that this will inspire you to pursue that. Look for those answers. Who are you? Because you offer so much more than you believe. I think we all fall into that. We never give ourselves the true awareness of the potential that we have, that all things are possible. Definitely so much more than we have ever thought, because we're too busy doubting ourselves, limiting our beliefs of what we think we can and can't do. Get rid of all that. That's noise. The things we need to be listening to are the things we find in the quiet places and the signs that we see. So just try to remove those limiting beliefs. Remove what you thought you believed about all of it. And be open. Just be open to listening to what you find or to what you hear. Because ultimately, you'll get to a point where you know exactly where to go to get all of your answers. You'll know exactly where to go to get all of your answers. And it doesn't lie anywhere outside of you. So if you are currently in a place where you find yourself searching and wondering how to connect with that inner wisdom, because we all have to go through these things, every single one of us. If you're looking for that inner wisdom, that voice of your soul, your higher self, source, your guardian angels to talk to you and to give you clues, a good place to start is just by slowing down just a little bit, just long enough to pay a little bit more attention, and pay attention to those little things, especially the things that you would normally dismiss or call your imagination, or just be like, no, that can't be real. Don't dismiss that stuff, because that is where the magic is. That's those little signs, the things that make you stop and be like, was that a message? If you say at any point, was that a message? I guarantee you it was. That means yes. If you're asking the question, that means your answer is yes. Because the God, source, creator, universe within you is giving you clues each and every day and wants to talk to you, wants to connect with you, wants you to live your best life, be your best self, to be happy, to be joyful, to be at peace, and to want that for everyone around you. That is the only way we change the outside world. And it starts with us. It starts with you, and it starts with me. And that's what I'm in the process of doing now and why I'm sharing this. I truly hope that something that I've said or say will resonate with you and cause you to just get curious. don't stop asking questions. Don't automatically assume that what you believe or what you've been told is right. Some of it might be, but most of it might not be. But that also might be the point of this life. Maybe we're supposed to get to a point where we figure this out. I don't know. Just asking a question. Maybe. So there's so many ways that Spirit, God, Source can talk to you or will talk to you. It can be in a dream. I highly recommend writing dreams down. It could be in a song that plays at the perfect time just when you need it. It could be the lyrics that touch you or that remind you of something. It could be the sign could come in words that you actually overhear someone else say. And maybe it's something that you've been thinking about or talking about with other people that person, or you don't even know that person, but you overhear something and it causes you to stop for a second and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a message. So pay attention to those things. And it might be in a video or a podcast that shows up in your feed as you're scrolling and looking for something to watch and, look at next, hear next. What do you want to learn about? But if that video or podcast shows up in your feed and compels you to click on it, that likely means that there's a message in there for you somewhere. There's a reason that video was put in there to see if you would actually look at it and be open to the potential message that's there for you. Maybe your signs show up on the numbers on a clock. It could be a digital clock. It could be on your phone, your tablet, your computer. It could be in a receipt or a license plate. House number shows up in repeating numbers. Repeating numbers are considered angel numbers. If you didn't know that, that's a great place to start. Angel numbers always have meaning, like 111 or 444. Go look those up. Even if you're not seeing it just yet, go look those up and just look up angel number 1111 or 111 or 222. Just look them up. Get curious. See what people are saying that they mean and what they mean to them. I still look them up when I see them because I get so excited. Like I still want that confirmation. I think most of us need a confirmation that we're on the right track, or we really would like to get confirmation that we're on the right track. And the only one that's going to know is you and your source, your spirit. No one else can tell you whether you're on the right track or not, generally. You can get an idea, yes. But your true signs that you're on the right path and that you should keep going come from a place that only you understand. You're getting those clues from your source. So God will speak to you in the ways that are part of your personal experience. That's why it's different for everyone. What comes through for me might come to you through very different methods and means. It could be nature. I remember this one time that I would put hummingbird feeders out for the first time. And I was so in love with my backyard, and it was so beautiful. I had a fountain out there. It was such a peaceful place to be. And I put these hummingbird feeders out. And hummingbirds started to come. And they came back every year. And they still come back every year. And now they're building nests in my trees. So they must be really comfortable and feel really comfortable. So such a genuinely authentic spiritual experience in my book. But anyways, this hummingbird, like maybe it might have been the first year that I did it, maybe the second year, I can't remember. But this hummingbird came up and flew or was hovering like inches from my face. I had a baseball hat on at the time, and it almost looked like he was ready to land on it. But he literally went just outside of the bill of my hat and came down and hovered there for a good 30 seconds to a minute. I was having a conversation with that hummingbird. That hummingbird was giving me a message and telling me to keep going. You're connected. I can feel your energy. I can feel your joy. So keep going. This is so cool. Like, I was like, that was so cool to me. And we can all have these experiences. Animals and children are drawn to me. Naturally, I'm noticing more and more. So to me, this is so cool. Get to know yourself. And most of us, again, we want that confirmation. Take it wherever you can find it. Don't question it. Because if you think it's meant for you, it's meant for you. So all of those things, all of those signs and messages is basically your soul's voice. And your guidance is trying to help you and guide you and love you and support you and encourage you. But you have to be willing to acknowledge it and listen to it. You may even hear voices directly, like that voice in your head, that makes you stop in your tracks for a moment because it doesn't sound like something that you would normally say to yourself. Like if you're being really nice or encouraging yourself, that voice, that's the voice of your soul, your guide, your angels. And the caveat on that is that if the voice in your head is ever in any way negative, condescending, dismissive, anything like that, that is not the voice I'm talking about. That is not your soul's voice. That is not your guide, not your source. Will never, ever be anything but loving and supportive and encouraging and positive. So, anyways, the biggest thing that we struggle with, I think, is doubt. We dismiss the signs, we dismiss the synchronicities, we call them a coincidence, and we dismiss it and go back to what we feel is normal and we forget about it. I'm sure I did that for a long time. I think we all do that. Like, we're just too busy. We tell ourselves it's just our imagination. We just flat out dismiss it because we tend to dismiss the things we don't understand. And we do that before we even ever give ourselves a chance to contemplate what that was or could be, or make an attempt to understand what exactly they were trying to get our attention for. So again, this is how your higher self guardian talks to you, gives you clues along the way. Look for them, find them, be excited about them, write them down. And as you acknowledge them and see them and write them down, I can almost promise you, to the point of a guarantee, that they will continue. And not only will they continue, but they will ramp up. So one thing I wanted to kind of leave you with here. Wayne Dyer, if anybody's heard of Wayne Dyer, hopefully most of you have, but he said something that made so much sense to me. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it was something like this. He said, if prayer is our way of speaking to God, then intuition is God's way of speaking to us. So when we pray, that's us speaking to God. But when we get that nudge, that sign, that intuition, that's God speaking to us. Think about that. That makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because if God created us, the divine creator, source, universe, that we were created, why wouldn't we also be given a way to connect to that source? Why would we not be given a way to be guided by that source? Because I sure don't think that we were just created out here willy-nilly so the universe and the gods could just be entertained and watch us kill each other and create chaos and confusion. I don't think so. I doubt very highly that that has anything to do with why we're here. So I just think that it's time that we get serious about connecting to our source. If you really want to live the most joyous life, happy life, that is peaceful and calm, and you're just happy to wake up every day. I'm so excited to wake up every day. I love my life. I love this world. Yes, even the chaos and the craziness and the crap that goes on. Once you get that connection, once you really, really believe and know that you have that connection and that ability and that gift, because we all have it. Once you start to know it, you see even more of it, and it creates a peace and a love and acceptance within your heart, that none of the other stuff matters. None of the crap matters. That's the life I want to live. That's the life I plan on living. That's the life I am living. I'm living in my truth. I'm speaking my truth. I'm trying to help as many people as I can just by speaking my own truth. I'm what works for me may not work for you. And if you're not ready to believe any of this stuff, that's okay too. Like, totally cool. Go on and live your life the way you're supposed to. And this channel won't be for everybody, and that's okay. Like, I'm cool with that, but I really do truly want to help if I can. So I hope that this makes you curious. I hope that you start thinking like a kid, release all those beliefs that we've had over the years, and just start getting curious. Get excited. Start to explore, see what works for you, find your thing. Because I promise you that Spirit, your guides, your angels, your God, your source will guide you. Because they've probably been doing, I know that it's been happening all along. We've just been dismissing it. So look for those signs. Grab them, write them down, hang on to them, look them up. And you will start to see. But you have to start somewhere. But by doing that, it brings you so much freedom. It brings you so much peace, even in this chaotic world around us. It brings you true joy and true happiness and true excitement. So get to know yourself. Ask the questions. Be honest. Be you. Because guess what? Right now, no matter where you are on this journey or path, whether you're on it or not, no matter where you are on it, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. And you are loved, loved, loved unconditionally. You are supported, and you will be guided to your truth. But you have to choose it. It'll keep kind of giving you hints and clues and stuff, but it's not going to force anything on you. Unless, of course, you push it away after seeing it, then you might get an out-of-body experience like I did. So believe me, I've been there. I'm encouraging you not to dismiss things, because if you continue to dismiss and not even take the time to find your truth, the universe, God, will find a way to make the time for you. And it could be by losing a job. It could be by an out-of-body experience. It could be by many things. And I've experienced a lot of those. So I'm telling you from my own experience, I just think you should pay attention. That's all. So if you can, you can. If you want it, you want it. But ask for it. And be clear. Take a few minutes. Get still and quiet where you're not bothered. And thank your guides for being there, even when you're not paying attention. And ask for them to give you clues. Ask for them to give you signs. Be clear that you are ready and willing to see the light and to listen and heed those signs, those clues, and pay attention to them. And once you do that, the floodgates just open from there. You start just seeing signs every once in a while, and you get excited. And make sure that when you see them, though, again, thank your guides and angels. I thank my guides and angels every single day. It's 1:01 on the clock right now as I'm doing this podcast. Thank you, angels, for revealing to me what it is I know. Thank you for sending me signs each and every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, that was perfect timing. I'm so excited. I'm going to write this one down because I write them all down. So the next thing I was going to say was that I instantly get the biggest, cheesiest grin on my face ever when I see these signs, I hope you just heard that, because it's still 101 right now. And that is so exciting to me. God, I love this job. I love my life. This is so awesome. Anyways, take the time. Pay attention. Love yourself. Give yourself grace. Do not judge yourself based on where you are or where you think you aren't on this path. You're exactly where you need to be. You are unconditionally loved, and you are supported. You will be guided, and you will be encouraged. You will find the courage, and you will find the strength, because if I can do it and I can be behind this microphone right now, you can do it too. You can do it. Again, don't make excuses. Just do it. It's really that simple. Okay, it's really not that simple, but it kind of is. It is and it isn't. You know what I mean. Anyway, so I think I am going to end this here. One more thing, if I can give you just a little advice, is don't ever let anyone tell you how the divine speaks to you. Be strong. Stand in your truth. Have courage. So if you are going to start talking about these things, you will be met with people who don't want to hear it, think you're crazy, all of that. It doesn't matter. They're on their own path. I don't judge it. I also don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. Because you don't need their validation to make it the truth for you. So don't ever let anyone tell you how the divine speaks to you, because only you know that. Because it's different for everyone. It really, really is. Spirit has unlimited ways of communicating with us, and us with Spirit, with our source. So again, we get to be kids again, get curious, experiment, see what works for you. Find the tools that will work for you. There's many out there, and we're going to talk about those in future episodes, the different tools that we can use to help assist us in getting those messages and making them more clear. So anyways, again, next episode, I'm going to talk about my out-of-body experience. I promise. And tell you the things that I noticed about what happens when you dismiss those clues and those signs, and when you're not paying attention, when your God, your spirit really, really wants you to, like you're at that point. Don't ignore it. Just saying. So play, have fun, get curious, look for those signs. I hope you find a sign today. I hope every single one of you finds a sign, sees a sign, hears a sign today. Be grateful for it, write it down, and look for the next one. Embrace your rebellious sacred heart, my friends. I wish you so much peace and so much joy. I love you, and thank you for coming. Be sure to subscribe, share, like, put a comment down, add fan mail, all that good stuff. But just live in joy. Love you guys. Bye.